This is Spiritual Souls Sliding Sideways, Chapter 15, to explain my explanation. Adding to knowledge, knowing more and more. The beginning never ends. The end is a choice to stop learning. I do not know why I question everything and everyone. I have come to realize that I do not truly understand. The only way for me to gain knowledge about anything and anyone is to possess the understanding of God. I catch brief glimpses of the true nature of reality and people. I know that most of the time the truth remains hidden from me. I can see some answers when I pray often, because my prayer is to see the truth that God sees. I have spent many years wondering what the truth of everything is. I have been angry and frustrated. I could not see things as they truly are at all times. I know that my design limits my perception to what I can see. I know my comprehension can only hope to grasp the true nature of things. I know I am lost. I know I can only interpret reality according to my design. I do believe God can give us a true discernment and spiritual sight. We can see things in their true form beyond our design. I knew I had fallen into spiritual insanity, and my only hope was to understand the way out of it. I needed to understand the true path back to my core. I prayed, pleaded, and begged for answers. The answers over the years emerged at a gradual pace. There were times I thought I had the answers I needed. Many times I had convinced myself that I possessed the greater truth I needed. When I clung to what I believed was true, I realized it was like sand slipping through my fingers. I became discouraged at ever understanding the truth of this existence. I wanted to understand the true nature of reality. I pleaded with God to show me so I could share the truth with others. I saw no reason for God to withhold what could help so many people. I thought I could convince God to give me the truth because I was going to do great things for Him. I came to realize that when we humans have truth, we can use it for good or abuse it for evil. I had some truth God had placed in my core, but I also knew how I had abused what I already knew. I wasn't sure I wanted to share what I knew, so why would God reveal a greater truth to me? After all, I had already misused the truth I had. Truth can be a double-edged sword. Gaining truth can help us understand our choices. Truth can help us understand the consequences associated with our choices. The truth would reveal the nature of existence and the connections among all things. If we had the whole truth, we could navigate this reality with precision. The truth would help us navigate with knowledge of our choices before we made them. We can do our best to understand where our choices will lead us. We may only have enough understanding to make an educated guess. We can only take what we know and analyze our options to make a choice. If we had the whole truth, there would be no doubt, and guessing would become an unnecessary option. I had to think, would God talk to me? I was ready to do His will. I was ready to go the distance for God. I was on fire and ready to make the world a better place. I was ready to understand my struggles and help others with their struggles. I was all in. I realized how true knowledge can be a trap. True knowledge can help us make a negative choice and understand how to get away with it on earth. If we understand what the true choice is, we can manipulate the outcome. When we truly understand, we can delay the spiritual effects of our choices. We can't escape the consequences of our choices. We might delay them, but in the end, it's still God's design. We can understand everything, but we do not have the power to change the design. Knowing everything doesn't mean we can change how things are meant to be. Understanding everything would let us control it all. We would still only have control within God's design. Then we could make everything work together for our benefit. With knowledge, we could use the design and understand how we can redesign it. If we could redesign reality, it would still be God's design for a redesign. God created creation with the possibility of many variations. We can manipulate and alter reality according to God's design. God's design is multi-directional with limitless options and ever-expanding choices. God's design has already dictated what will work and what will not work. God designed how many alterations would go together and how many would not. If we knew everything, we would understand the Creator's creation. What if we knew what would and would not work to change existence already? If we understood everything, We would know all causes and effects. If we understood everything, we would be on a level that would be like playing with Legos. The insanity of not knowing and the insanity of knowing can be the same. If we knew what we could change and what we could not change, could we accept it? Knowing a lot but being unable to change anything can be as frustrating as knowing very little. Whether we know very little or everything, it can be frustrating if we have no control over anything. Understanding something does not always lead to gaining control over it. It is like a car. We understand it, but in certain conditions we may fail to control it. We have limited control even when we know everything. Only God can give us more control with gained knowledge. I understand there is so much to know. I know if I knew it all, there would be no mystery. If there were no mystery in life, there would be no surprises. If there is no surprises, we would then live in an existence that is completely predictable. How would we adjust to an existence that is completely predictable? Would we want to forget it all again, to recreate the excitement of discovery? It is hard to live without knowledge, and it could be as hard to know everything. I understand the true nature of knowledge. I understand what power, control, and knowledge can offer us. I understand how wisdom, intelligence, and knowledge can help us to get the best life results. I understand how gaining true knowledge could give us a false sense of control. Control, power, and knowledge are the end goals to secure our existence. Our existence depends on our ability to add to the information that formed us. We are a combined coexistence of contained informational energy. Our existence is what we know and continue to know. We are only the information we receive and can acquire. We are and will always be self-contained gathered information. We try to survive this reality with the information we have. The information we have often does not seem to be enough to survive such a hostile random existence. We can find it hard to understand and comprehend our choices and consequences. Various factors contribute to earthly and spiritual madness. It happens when we can't fit the pieces together. The greater insanity is when we do not have the pieces to put together. We are information that relies on more information to work and stay sane. We can gain knowledge that keeps us sane. We can receive too much knowledge that is too much for our mental processors. What we cannot mentally process can drive us insane, even if we have the knowledge we want. Designers create everything to depend on something else. When we gain something we cannot process, we can hope we can depend on God to help us process it. I have tripped over many different forms of knowledge. When I believed I knew what I was talking about, but it was not true, is when it ended the worst for me. Knowledge is great, and being able to string knowledge together is wonderful. It's good to know how things fit together, but sometimes I try to force certain pieces of knowledge to match. I wanted knowledge to the extreme. I would fit pieces of knowledge together with confidence and certainty. I could not see that sometimes the pieces did not fit together. My ego was the confidence that my knowledge was certain, that the pieces fit together. I did not understand how much I was getting in my own way. I felt I was the growing wisdom of the universe. I felt I was on my way to transcendence. I often did not wish to test my knowledge because I felt I had the truth. When life and reality tested my knowledge, it was disappointing. Finding out that my knowledge was shaky brought me down a few notches. I fell when my knowledge failed. The knowledge I thought I had put me on a level of certainty. My knowledge failed, destroying my certainty. I am often still disappointed when I must recalibrate my knowledge. I have learned from the many mistakes I made by forcing my pieces of knowledge together. I still force knowledge together sometimes. I must hope I can see when I am forcing knowledge together before reality tests my knowledge and I am knocked down. I still am learning to slow down. I am learning how to consider and separate knowledge. I pray for the order of the knowledge I have. The order of knowledge is as important as the possession of knowledge. I often feel out of order and keep reaching for the right order. I am happy for the external and internal order I have. I have learned that the more I learn, the more I may need to reorganize things. It would be like having a pan to cook an egg in. We could try to cook the egg on the bottom of the pan with the stove off. The order of knowledge will determine the results of our efforts. We can try to do what we want with knowledge and organize it however we want. To get the best results from knowledge, we should always ask how to use it in the best order. I always want to know more. What if I receive the knowledge to cook meat before I understand what an animal is? Knowing how to cook meat is helpful, but it won't matter much if I don't know what an animal is. Throughout human history, our lack of knowledge has been the result of trial and error. We can always strive for the correct knowledge. We can push for answers we do not yet have. We often stare into darkness and do our best to give light to the darkness. The light reveals the truth when it removes the darkness. The light may reveal random knowledge that we need to organize. Do we have enough light to shine in the darkness? Can we seek out and solve life's mysteries by using 1,000 people to shine in the darkness? How much light does it take to reveal answers that exist in the darkness? The darkness represents a paper covering the answers on another piece of paper. We only need to have the will to lift the piece of paper off the paper that has the answers. We lift the paper because we can understand and comprehend it. If we can't understand how to lift the paper and find the answers, we miss what we need before the answers can be shown to us. We need to understand what it takes to get answers. What are we missing to reveal the answers we seek? We cannot always harness the power and light needed to reveal all the answers we seek. Some answers we seek may require a certain level of power and light. We may not have enough power and light even if we could harness the power and light of earth and all that inhabit it. God dictates access to knowledge. Access to the levels of knowledge takes a certain type of spirituality. We can receive from God the levels of power and light that we need to reveal the answers we seek. We can also receive a spiritual level to begin unlocking the secrets of the universe. God gives us power and light like keys that open doors. These help us uncover different mysteries in life. I had wanted to tap into the power and light needed for God-level understanding. I wanted to be the light of the world. I know that people said Jesus had the light and power to access God's mysteries and universal answers. I can only imagine what it was like to be Jesus. I get why he's frustrated. He wanted us to connect more spiritually. I understand the concept of who Jesus was and is. I understand how he turned water into wine. I understand how Jesus could command the elements with thoughts alone. I dreamt of harnessing the power of Jesus. I dreamt of receiving power from God like Jesus did. I watched shows with magical powers that seemed to change reality. The shows reminded me of Jesus. I dreamed my whole life of creating what I needed through my imagination. I came to realize that this magic does exist, but it is not magic. It is spiritual power and light. I came to understand what kind of spiritual power and light it might take to move a mountain. I was not sure how I could achieve gaining spiritual power and light. People say that a mustard seed of faith can move a mountain. This did not fare well for me, given how much faith I had. True faith is the submission to the correct order and direction of God's will. What is God's will? God's will means understanding everything and how it all works best together. God's will is the ability to manipulate and change reality. How could we possess the faith needed when our focus is on earthly matters? How much faith would it take to open one of God's spiritual doors to universal answers? The Bible states that Jesus' disciples could not remove the demons from a certain person. The person possessed would need a certain level of spiritual light and power to be free of the demons. The disciples did not possess enough faith, light, and power to remove the demons. They brought the person to Jesus to help remove the demons. Jesus removed the demons from the person. Jesus made the person whole. The disciples asked Jesus why they couldn't remove the demons. He replied that they didn't have enough faith. Jesus told his disciples that to remove the demons from the person, it would take fasting and prayer. The disciples did not have enough faith. The disciples lacked the light and power to command the demons to leave the person. What does it take to access heaven? If we could see heaven, how frustrating would living in this limited reality become? We can strive for knowledge and faith. We can push the limits on what we can know and understand. We can always reach for God. To truly understand, we must know where things start and finish. We can push forward in the darkness and pray for light to shine in the darkness. When will we receive enough power and light to reveal the answers in the darkness? We live in both a spiritual realm and a physical world. Spirituality will determine where we need to be in existence. The many levels of God are for our infinite learning and understanding. We exist on certain spiritual levels, whether in the flesh or in the spirit. We can enjoy knowledge, and knowledge can torture us. The benefit and torture of knowledge depend on what level of spirituality we can exist on. The closer we are to God, the more likely we will find ourselves in the places we need to be spiritually. We can reach an inner spiritual level that doesn't match our outer one. It would be like being a radio station. We broadcast on the radio at a frequency of 105.2, but we must live with the outside frequency of 97.6. We can have one spiritual level inside us, but show different levels outside. Every person has their own spiritual level, like the world does. We can live in a place on earth surrounded by people which make us feel spiritually misplaced. Our place on earth and the people that surround us affect us. We all have different frequencies or vibrations. We all are in a different internal spiritual place. Life can feel chaotic when everything around us vibrates at a different frequency. We can even go crazy when too many frequencies that are not at least close to our frequency surround us. Everything and everyone have a unique frequency, and they all emit it. A million different frequencies can bombard us at the same time. Our internal state affects how well we handle others and our environment. We all can be a different frequency and a different order of frequencies. We must understand that universal frequencies exist. We should never limit the many spiritual frequencies to this existence. There are many layers of existence. How many layers of existence exist in one space at the same time? Like dimensions. How layered is reality here on Earth? It is like my cell phone. I can see the surface layers of my cell phone, but how many more layers are unseen? The multi-level frequencies of existence can affect us unaware. We should become aware that what we see is not all that exists. There are many invisible layers to our existence. The visible and invisible layers of existence affect us. Life feels like living in a massive apartment building. It has 1,000,000 stories and each level spans 1,000,000 square feet. We would be the most affected by the apartments that are closest to us. The further out may have some effect, but we would be less affected by the apartments that are further away. Now imagine there are 1,000,000 dimensions that exist in the same space as the building. So now we are dealing with something that has magnified substantially. What surrounds us and each dimension that surrounds us would then affect us. When we try to see life through the eyes of God, we must understand we only see the surface of what creation is. I like to remove myself from what I know and allow any new knowledge to replace what I knew. God is with me in the way He is with me, helping me understand things better. I do not understand how it all works. I have an idea of how things work from many years of speculation and doubt. I question things most when they do not make sense. When things seem like they can work better, I question them. I have found people get stuck in the way they do things because change can be trying on the nerves. In a lifetime, we can make many changes. This can lead to feeling overwhelmed by knowledge. With all the growth we could experience in a lifetime, it could bring us far outside our comfort bubble. It can be overwhelming to see all the changes we can make. It is easier to settle into some known information and become complacent. It is easier for people to be complacent than to keep growing and learning. If we gain true knowledge and it does not reshape us, it is because we would have knowledge that we refuse to apply. I have had to learn to reshape myself repeatedly. I have tried to stay in one place for comfort. I wanted to change a couple of times and then rest forever. I did not realize how many ways I could change for the better. I did not like the knowledge remodeling me because it sadly humbled my soul. I felt like I had to start from scratch every time I needed to change. Each new piece of knowledge made me wonder how I could use it in my life. I continued to gain knowledge over time but did not understand how it could help me. I did not understand how I could place the knowledge I received with the knowledge I already knew. I needed knowledge to help me organize the new knowledge I had gained. I needed knowledge for its own sake. I sometimes needed steps to follow steps when assembling something in my mind. It felt like adding a spoon to my bike chain. I could have no knowledge of what people use a spoon for. I could believe it would be best to add a spoon to my bike chain. I would try to add the spoon to my bike chain. Even if I failed at adding the spoon to my bike chain, I might try many times to make it work. There might come a time when I would not try to add the spoon to my bike chain. I would likely place the spoon in my mental drawer. I would not understand what else I could use the spoon for. The knowledge I have, plus any new knowledge, can be both amazing and confusing. I wanted knowledge to make my life easier. I gained insights that helped me at times, but sometimes they left me even more confused. I did not always understand the use of knowledge. Knowledge is powerful and overwhelming at times. Knowledge can create disappointment and solutions. Knowledge can be a double-edged sword when we are not ready for it, and if we do not know how to apply it. Knowledge can be our freedom, and it can be our life's predictable boredom. We can possess universal knowledge and not be surprised. We can possess a limited amount of knowledge and end up in a state of confusion and insanity. Knowledge is all we have, and it is what we are. We organize knowledge, and God organizes existence as His informational responsibility. Knowledge is what makes this all work and what can tear it apart.